Juice WRLD's ex has always poked holes in the official story of his death. Now she's just dropped a bombshell in court accusing his own team of being responsible. But what really froze the courtroom wasn't the accusation, it was her chilling account of Juice's final words. Let's get into it, the warning no one heard. Juice WRLD didn't die the way they told you. For years the official story was clean-cut seizure, overdose tragic but inevitable, the headlines were fast. The tributes emotional and the blame neatly a sonetto the lifestyle, but the story was missing something. And now finally his ex-girlfriend Ali Lahi, the one who was literally by his side during his final tours, who he wouldn't even board a plane without, just said something in court that changes everything. Not only did she hint that Juice was being manipulative in as his body gave out, she made claims about how he was handled, what he knew, and the terrifying pressure behind closed doors. She didn't just lose a boyfriend, she watched Jared Higgins become Juice WRLD and then vanish. She claims that his team watched him spiral and didn't stop him. She says she was the only one helping him manage the panic attacks, the drug use, and the non-stop recording schedule that left him tired by human, and that no one else around him even understood what was really happening to him mentally or physically. And this isn't the first time she said
he's like, I'm upset, and I'm like, okay, what's up? He's like, what do you mean a panic attack? Like, no one knew.
For those who don't know, Ali Lahi's real name Alicia was not some overnight groupie or clout chaser. In fact, she was living a wildly independent life before she ever met Juice WRLD. She'd thrown warehouse parties in Philly, bartended in Memphis, and even worked in strip clubs just to serve, all before age 25. She'd been broke, homeless, alone, and when she met Jared, she didn't care about Juice WRLD Beckos. She didn't even know who he was.
Like, I don't know who this kid is, but this is, if I made music, you're mixing a bunch of genres together and being so good at it.
Fact, she thought Lucid Dreams was just a cool track some kid in her circle had passed around. It wasn't until months later, when the song blew up, that she realized who he really was. Python, they had already been talking. She messaged him casually, he messaged back. They talked about anxiety, panic, trust, and before she knew it, she was flying out to see him in Rhode Island. But what started as a chill weekend turned into something else entirely. He wouldn't let her leave, not in a creepy, violent way, but in a way that made it clear Juice WRLD didn't want to be alone anymore, ever.
Jared literally, he kidnapped me, is the only way we could say it. It's like a joke that we would say, but it happened.
From that day forward, she was on tour, every flight, every hotel, every meltdown, a very overdose scare. He needed her not just for love, but for survival. And here's where it gets dark. Ali says Jared's team, his label, his security, his so-called friends, didn't understand what was going through, not the emotional spiral, not the constant pressure, not even the signs of full-blown mental and physical collapse, but she did. She talked in him through panic attacks, put his hands and eyes, told him to breathe, watched him hyperventilate backstage, and still the show went on day after day, city after city. More songs, more pressure, more pills, and this is where it starts to get sick. Ali now suggests that this wasn't just carelessness, it was a calculated risk by the people around Juice WRLD. See, according to her testimony, Jared didn't just work hard, he was pushed aggressively by an industry that saw a cash cow and a kid to naivete say no. Juice recorded over 2,000 unreleased songs in just 2 years. 2,000. That's not just a work ethic, that's and in her own words, Jared was exhausted mentally, physically, and emotionally. Jared was tired, right?
Jared was tired.
Right.
Jared was tired. His body, at the end of the day, what I could say about when everything happened is just his body was tired. I was tired. My body has gone through a lot, but my body was tired. Like, I can only imagine what his brain would move 8 times faster than mine.
But instead of pulling him back, slowing down the schedule, or getting him help, they booked more tours, more festivals, more flights. And the worst part, the very people who were supposed to protect him were the Samionis, making millions off his pain. Ali says Jared would have never made it to Tokyo without her. He couldn't function cold and organize, couldn't even get his passport without a crisis.
I remember crying. He was like, she's gonna get her passport tomorrow at 12, so I had to go to the DMV at 8 a.m.
She was holding him together while the industry kept raking it in, and now years later, and after staying quiet through grief, trauma, and scrutiny from fans who accused her of being just another groupie, is finally telling the full story in court. And what she's saying, it changes everything, because if even half of what she's revealing is true, Juice WRLD didn't just die from a seizure on a plane. He was failed systematically by a music industry that knew exactly what it was doing, and by people who mad at their fortunes off a kid who never had a chance to grow up. So now the question becomes, what really happened during those final 24 hours? What did Ali see, and what evidence does she have to back it up? But let's be clear, Ali didn't just stumble into his life, she warned his family early on. She told them exactly what she saw happening and exactly what Jared needed to survive the.
You have your son, like he's 19, around everyone else he's around is 25, 26, 27, 28.
This wasn't paranoia, it was reality. Jared was the youngest person in every room, and also the richest, the most famous, the most in demand. And everyone wanted a piece of him, but she wasn't just worried about his finances, she was worried about his mind. Because she was watching him go through something most people couldn't even identify. Full-blown panic episodes, rapid mood shifts, paranoia, and dissociation.
It's like, what do you mean a panic attack? Like no one knew around him.
And Walsh gave him breathing exercises, cold compresses, and grounding tips. Others gave him more pills and more flights and more pressure. Ali wasn't just his girlfriend. She was the only person in his circle, according to her, who actually said stop. But that didn't matter because by then Juice WRLD had become a Brandon too big to pause. His unrealistic catalog worth millions, his shows selling out globally, every day off was Milost. And so the show went on, even as his booty was breaking down, and the scariest part of this expose is that Ali saw it coming. She literally had a breakdown in the shower one day, no trigger, no warning, just a sense that her world was slipping away.
We were in the shower and I just started bursting into tears. That was like, you're not gonna be here.
You can hear it in her voice. That moment wasn't just emotional, it was prophetic, and looking back now after all the tours, overdoses, delays, and lawsuits, she says she's haunted by the sins she missed, but even worse, the sins she didn't miss, the ones Cha screamed about and nobody listened. This isn't just a story of love and loss. It's a story of negligence, of calculated lengths, and of a machine that chews up kids for clicks and platinum plaques. Because if you believe Ali's side-off story, Juice WRLD didn't stand a chance. The flight that ended everything. So now we dive into the final 24 hours. Day that changed everything. The private jet, the pills, the seizure, the headlines. But what happened before the camera's roll? What does Ali say went down in those final moments? Let's piece it together with her words. According to Ali, the days leading up to Juice WRLD's death were already chaotic, but more importantly, they weren't supposed to be. She claims Jared had been planning to slow down, to take a break, to finally step back from the industry carousel, but the team around him kept the pressure up. They scheduled shows, flights, appearances, recording sessions, constant motion, constant profit, and then came the final flight. The story public got was simple. Juice WRLD suffered a seizure after landing at Chicago's Midway Airport. Pills were involved, the end, but Ali says it wasn't just a seizure. And it wasn't just the pills, it was a storm of things. First, Thetum was panicking before they landed. According to reports, federal agents were already waiting at the airport after Bung tipped off about drugs and weapons in the plane. Juice WRLD swallowed multiple Percoate pills to hide them from authorities. That's what the initial story claimed. But Ali now hints that narrative isn't that clean. Chessigists, Jared didn't intend to ingest that much. He was terrified, confused, and most importantly alone in that decision. Why? Because in those final moments the people around him froze, panicked, or worse, disappeared. She's asked repeatedly in interviews, where was security, where was management, who let him take that many pills? Her answer, chilling silence.
I could have made sure that people were gone that shouldn't have been around, because that it was like, what, I don't know. Because when I said something, it wasn't, even if I might have been a cunt, or sorry, but that's what I was.
She's not just talking about that one day, she's talking about years of ignored, marginalized, treated like just a girlfriend, even when she was the one holding him up when he collapsed. Ali says Jared was surrounded, beautifully alone. And the final flight, it was just the final blow. According to the official coroner's report, Juice WRLD died from oxycodone and codone toxicity, but the circumstances leading to that, the why, was never fully investigated publicly. Ali says that's not an accident. She says people around Jared had incentive to cover up that cows because they were profiting from it. She even hints that Juice WRLD's unreleased music catalog with thousands of songs became more valuable after his death, and that certain figures immediately moved in to control the estate, cutting her out completely.
I have not listened to Legends Never Die. I can't do it.
I haven't not listened to Legends Never Die. I can't do it. And here's where it turns dark, because Ali claims that not only was she cut off, she was actively discredited, branded as a clout chaser, a liar, even a suspect in his death. Only naturals flooded her inbox, blogs twisted her story. Was she feeding him drugs? Did she sell him out? Why was she the last person with him? It became a circus, and the people who knew the truth stayed silent. Ali's truth, now told in court and podcast, paints a disturbing picture of An industry that knew what washaponing and let it happen anyway. The product was worth more than the person, and now the question is, will Lanyon be held accountable because a Juice WRLD didn't fake the seizures, hadn't faked the exhaustion. He didn't fake the anxiety, the fear, or the pleas for help. We've seen the videos, we've heard the lyrics, he was crying out constantly. And if Ali's telling the truth, then a lot of people heard it, and here's where everything fractures, not just in body but in Ali's life, because the moment that plane landed, it wasn't just Jared who lost everything. Ali's world collapsed in real time. Imagine this, you're on a jet. The man you love, the man you've traveled the world with, who calls you his lifeline, drags you to the DMV for a passport, just so you can fly with him, is convulsing on the floor. Airport security is banging on the door, and suddenly, everything stops. The music, the future, the dream. According to official reports, Juice WRLD began. Moments after the jet touched down at Midway Airport, the emergency item rushed in, he was taken to a nearby hospital, and by 3:14 a.m., he was pronounced dead, but what wasn't reportedly says she was interrogated like a suspect. Not comforted, not supported. No, Devin believed they asked her what drugs she took, who gave them to him, if she had any on her while she was still the fact that her boyfriend had just died right in front of her. She was treated like a grieving partner, she was treated like a problem to Monty. Here's the gut punch, she wasn't allowed to grieve at all, as Juice WRLD's death went viral, racking up headline hashtags and hysteria. Ali was locked out of the hospital, the estate, and the narrative. According to her, she didn't get a call from his team, no one asked how she was doing. No one offered support, and when the press finally reached out, she was advised to stay quiet, not by enemies, by people she thought were on Jared's side, because from the moment his death became a business. Let's talk numbers. Within 48 hours, Juice WRLD's music surged across all platforms. Lucid Dreams hit 1 on Apple Music again, streaming went up 487%. Legends Never Die, his first album, sold nearly 500,000 units in its debut weekend. Where was Ali? Nowhere near it. She was isolated, shut out, portrayed as a side character in her own story, and then came the smears. People began whispering Zugist. She was involved, that she ennobled him, that she was clout chasing, that she didn't belong on the stage. Despite literally being on tour with Himalay has called this era the darkest of her life, not because of the grief, but because of the gaslighting. She says Sheck knew something was wrong in the industry long before Jared passed. She saw Thebron out the mental health breakdowns, the shitty deals. But when she spoke up, she was told to just be the girlfriend. Evan, her warnings to Jared's family, she says, were dismissed. She saw vultures manipulates people who claimed to be friends but who didn't step in when the drugs got worse. Didn't step in when the word dates piled up, didn't stop the machine, and now they were profiting from the result. This isn't conspiracy, it's history. Artists have long been commodified in death, from Tupac and Biggie to Zentation and Poppy M. Smoke labels monetize tragedy, fans replay the music, but behind all that real people are left with silence, guilt, unanswered questions, and that's what Ali was droning in. Maybe that's why years later she finally broke the silence, not just online but in court. Because Sheckle didn't carry the burden anymore. She says that what happened to Juice WRLD's hold have been preventable, that people around him knew he was struggling. Thatch told them that she screamed it, and that instead of stepping in, they stepped it aside. And when the final crisis hit, they vanished. So now in 2025 she's demanding accountable, not just from the labeler, the estate, or the blogs that profit off her pain, but from a culture that glamorizes addiction, speed, and self-destruction until the body drops, because that's what Jared's death really was. Not an accident, not an ice, but the final product of an industry that turns vulnerability into content, erased from his legacy. What if you watched someone build an empire on Lido be erased from it the moment they were gone? That's what Ali Lahi claims happened in court. In interviews, in countless teary clips, she said the same thing over and over again. I was there every show, every crash, every hospital visit, and now I'm nobody to them. But there's what you haven't heard. She say she had access to unreleased albums and her projects written with her above other albums. Juice WRLD had played for her in hotel rooms, on flights, in the car, whispering lyrics in her ear before anyone else ever heard them. And now she doesn't even have the right to listen to them publicly without being attacked.
Jared made a whole album about me and I wasn't allowed to listen to it on. I have not listened to Legends Never Die. I can't do it.
Think about that, a woman inspired entire songs who helped hold a globally famous artist together, now can't even bring herself to press playback, as the album wasn't just music, it was a corpse repackaged, a brand resold. Ali says she knew immediately what washaponing. She says that within days of Juice's death, people around him moved swiftly to control the unreleased music, lock her out of a state. Discussion sand, begin marketing. Juice WRLD as a finished product, not a human being. That's not a conspiracy theory. That standard industry practice. Lucid Dreams alone generated over $15 million and with over 2,000 unreleased songs. Diosamus catalog was a goldmine. O'Neely says she was never consulted about. She had no rights to it, no say. And from hard telling, no respect, but that's Notivin the part that hurts most. It's way those around Jared did after because Zalai now claims that people in his circle began rewriting history, painting her as a side character, a tag-along Ivana liability. And the most damning part, she says they started removing her from photos. Literally going back through old social posts, group shots, red carpets, and cropping her out, erasing her from the narrative. Because for Ally, it was never about owning a piece of Juice WRLD, it was about keeping Jared's story on a stand. Now she's taking that mission personally. Let's talk about the text. She says there are private messages between her and Jared that show just how scarred really was, that he was aware of how everything was moving, that he needed to slow down, that he didn't trust Ivarian around him. In one message, which has paraphrased in interviews, Jared allegedly told her, "They don't care about my mind, they just want my music." And she believes that's exactly what the penned Ally describes watching Jared's personality shift in his final months. He wasn't just tired, he was terrified, hadn't want to party. He didn't want to hit the club like other artists. He wanted to play video games, watch cartoons, collect vintage fashion, read fan DM